So when did Scran start? It says 2021. When as soon as you say something starts in 2020 or 2021, the question you don't ask is not when, but how, but why did it start?
It started when we went into lockdown. Fair Share was sending out a huge volume of food. Our food parcel requests skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And part of that was because our young people couldn't buy own brand stuff. There was none of that left on the shelves. It was all branded stuff.
Yeah.
So requests for food parcels from maybe we currently do, I would say, about 30 a week. That went up to 30 a day. Easy, some days more.
Yeah.
And some of that was, they didn't need the food, some of it was company. They wanted to see people on their doorstep. So Scran came about because we realised that young people didn't have a clue what they were doing with food.
How did you know that they didn't?
Because they were telling us, they were ringing us up and going, I don't know what to do with it. Have you got anything that I can make something? They were just ringing us and telling us.
Was it a lack of knowledge and confidence, or was it a lack of equipment?
Everything.
Everything.
So one of the questions that we had a set range of questions. Any allergies?
Yeah.
How many people are living in the house? Because we stipulate 2,000 calories per day per person. So if there was 4 people in the house, that food parcel was massive.
Yeah.
And it was to last them 3 days. So it was a whole lot of food. But that's what we stipulated as part of our food parcel. The last question that we asked, do you have a tin opener? And if they didn't, we went down to Boys and we bought an absolute stack of tin openers, because often people didn't. And stuff that we were getting from Fair Share at the time was from all over Europe. That doesn't happen anymore. But a lot of stuff didn't have a ring pull on it. So it was just one of the basic questions. Have you got enough pans? We'd provide them with pans.
Right.
So there was a lack of equipment.
Yeah.
And a lack of knowledge and a huge lack of confidence.
So before you set out the food parcel, when you were working out what to send out, you had a questionnaire.
Yeah.
And you were basing what you sent out in terms of food, but then equipment as well.
It was standardised. It was a standard food parcel was going out unless they had an allergy.
Right, yeah.
Or if they had a dietary requirement.
Yeah.
So if they were saying, well, we don't eat meat.
Yeah.
Then
But then you were asking what equipment they had just to make sure they could cook the food.
Yeah.
And then then did you just provide them with the equipment? So once you provided them with the equipment, how did you then know that there was still a barrier?
You don't unless people are telling you. You don't know that until people start talking to you. And that can be over the phone. It can be when we do the doorsteps, when we go out onto the doorsteps and drop the food parcels off for them. You kind of get a sense. So we got the sense that people actually didn't know how to cook and didn't know what to do with raw meat.
So how did you address that then?
We built Scran.
Scran is,
we built the kitchen.
Scran is a kitchen.
Yeah. And then we applied for funding with HLC.
Right.
HLC came in, loved the kitchen. Their first visit was through Zoom, and I literally propped them up in the corner on an iPad, and they watched a session. They turned their cameras off, so we all just forgot that they were there. And they watched a session and agreed to fund us.
Right.
And they funded my position until July.
Until July, indeed. So what is your role, or what is your aim with the people that you're working with?
My role, in theory, my job title is nutrition and food lead. So I look after all of the food parcel stuff. I look after the relationship with the food partnership. I look after the relationship with Fair Share. And we take young people that fit into HLC's very narrow margins, which is they've got to be within the HU postcode, HU1 to HU9, not in education, employment or training, aged 16 to 29. I think that's really about all. There probably is some more stipulations in the funding, but that's about it. And they've not to have done a project somewhere else at another funders. And then they can come in. We take them through the level 2 food hygiene with the aim for them to go into employment with that qualification. What it's turned into is that it's very much a place where people talk, which you witnessed today. It's about, that was a noisy session because babies were in and other staff were in. But usually when I'm in here on my own with the young people, it's quite calm. I'm not a great fan of too much noise. I think it's distracting. Never have music on. We just have it really calm and quiet. And it allows people to open up to the point where January, February, I did a course in mental health because I was getting disclosures that I didn't know how to deal with in this kitchen. Because it becomes that kind of place. They build friendships, and the course is over 5 weeks. So they build up friendship groups and disclosures happen. And that's where it's morphed into. It's more than just a qualification. It's more than just a level 2. It's about feeling comfortable with people that you're working with. And also there was so much stuff was coming out that I just thought I need to do some sort of qualification around this.
Because it seems like you've got a formal, first of all, that formal set of criteria. Does that enable, and you've listed all of the, I think all the major ones. Does that enable you to engage with all of the participants that you think you need to?
Not around that criteria. So what we did over, was it Easter last year? No, maybe it was the summer holidays last year, or half term. It was over half term. And we did a men's only course, and the men didn't have to fall within HLC's regulations, really tight code. We brought in a male chef who was external. We brought him in as a tutor, and he took a group of lads. And the only reason I was in the room is that we didn't pay for his DBS. He didn't have a DBS, so I had to be in the room. But actually, he led the whole session. So those lads, all of those lads, were either in education or at college. One was at Wyke, one was at Hull College, one's in was he in part-time work at the time? I think he was. But they wanted to learn how to cook. Obviously none of them come under HLC, but we've got that freedom, and because we'd hit all of our targets, we had that little bit of freedom to fit them in for a full week's course, and they came in every day for that week and did cooking. And
in terms of like funding the structure and learner contact hours and all the things that an educational funder is looking at, how does that fit in with quite a narrow qualification, which is level 2?
Yeah, level 2 food hygiene.
Food hygiene.
Yeah.
But it seems like you're teaching a much wider set of skills. How do you fit the criteria of HLC and the criteria of what the participants need? How do you fit those together?
The qualification essentially is 8 hours learning plus 1 hour. They allow 1 hour for the exam, so 9 hours. We get funding for a minimum of 20 hours per learner. So we've got time. We've got time to do more cooking with them. It's not just about sitting and doing the qualification. We've got time for them. They come down to the allotment with us. We go down to Rooted. We do that every Friday. So there's all sorts that we can add into it.
And was that because of just the structure of the funding, or did you go to HLC and explain?
That's just it's the structure of the funding. Yeah, each learner gets a minimum of 20 hours, and they also get a financial budget as well, which we use for ingredients. We use it for if they need any equipment in the house, like Dan said about a temperature probe. I'll probably use that because Dan is on the Achieve project. I'll probably use some of that budget and go and get her a temperature probe and just explain to her and give her that confidence, because I know that Dan is living off takeaways. I know that Dan lives off energy drinks. I know that Dan buys a meal deal every day. I know those things because of conversations that we've had. So if I can get them to the point where they are starting to cook at home, and it's a small win, isn't it? It's just a little win.
Yeah. So we were talking about the Warrens practice and philosophy of empowerment, and then the project that you worked on with the food partnership around what it was called, what you put in your mouth.
Yeah.
And there was also there is also a website that's been created from that. Can you just talk through what happened on that project?
We've got Northcott supported internship that use the building.
Right.
And we used them for that project. Northcott are a great group of kids to work with, young people to work with. So it's not our usual cohort. We have them every day. So we don't have to rely on them coming in and being sober and ready. Northcott, this is their school. So we use Northcott for this project because they do. Northcott are brilliant young people, but again, consuming loads of sugar. So I spoke to their teachers about using the young people up there for the project, and they loved it.
Yeah.
They absolutely loved it.
And how did the teachers respond or make use of that?
The teachers were completely involved from the start. All of us went, all the 3 teachers that are up there, myself, Cara and Hilary did some of the day courses as well. So yeah, it was great. It was a really good project for them. They also came, Cara also came in and worked with our group we have a young group of people that come in that are working their way through their sexuality and working out where they fall in that area of their life. And Cara came in and did a group session with them as well.
Yeah. So you were building you were creating a project within existing consistent groups rather than creating a new group for this.
Yeah, because working with young people is really unreliable unless they're captive. So NSI was perfect for that, and the Shout group as well was perfect for it because they were in the building for something else. We do have to ask the young people's permission as to whether they want to be part of the project. Inevitably, they always say yes, unless it's something really left field, but we wouldn't take anything to them that we weren't going to get buy-in because there's no point putting a lot of effort into something unless it's going to be really good for them.
Going back to that, I'm thinking of the HLC funded project and projects that have a time constraint at the beginning, middle and an end. Is there any issues with that, with the consistency of participants attending as students to a project when normally you like it to be much more fluid than that? Yeah, it's keeping them in. It's fighting against young people's anxieties about coming into we've seen a huge increase in anxiety post lockdown, huge increase. So even just getting somebody into the building, you can say to them, if I said to somebody today, I'll see you tomorrow, and they'll go, oh yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, we'll come in and we'll do that. I'm not planning anything until I see them coming through the door the next day. But when you've got captive people, when you've already got them in the building, it's great. But getting people to buy into it is difficult. Yeah. But they need to know at the end of it that the qualifications, you're going to get a qualification out of it, you're going to get this out of it, that out of it. And also saying, tomorrow we're going to do this. It might just be me and one other person. Might be me and 3 people, and as long as the young people know that tomorrow we're doing this, and there's going to be you, me, such and such and such and such. Yeah. Tend to be okay with it. Scran is a project within an existing organisation. Were there any benefits in terms of communicating and getting the trust of and getting the relationships with the participants because you were within an already existing set of relationships? Yeah,
so they already knew me, I think, really. Anything that we do with the building has to be run past young people. So, because it's their money, essentially, if we're not this was all self-funded, this kitchen. We're just guardians of the building for the young people, whichever generation comes through. So the young people had started to get to know me. I started at the Warren just before lockdown. Right. I'd only been here 3 months. And I was just starting to build relationships with young people. Then obviously went into lockdown, and I was the person that coordinated the food parcels. So it was always me that they spoke to on the phone, so I started getting to know the regular young people. And then we built the kitchen. ran the idea past them. Because there was still stuff going on online that we do like on Wednesday we have the thing. The thing is, what is the thing? The thing is our youth parliament. So it's when all the decisions about the building's made. And we do that every other Wednesday, sorry. And that was still happening, but it was online. Now sometimes you wouldn't get anybody attending it, and then sometimes you'd get maybe 4 or 5 young people. So we still took that to the thing. It helped that they knew the room. They got a buy-in on the colour scheme, all the different colours, because each kitchen's a different colour, and I explained to them why I wanted to do that. They picked the colours, they picked the decorations, they picked everything to do with the kitchen. And then when they came back in, once we'd opened the doors, they were like, oh, this is it. So it was about already having those relationships, I think. And they knew that plans were in place to change the building during lockdown, because that's when the Carve was built as well, which is our digital project at the end of the building. The majority of that was done during lockdown as well, so they knew that they were coming into a different building. We had pods up, which were all partitioned off, and you had to book a pod to come into the building. So things did change, got completely back to normal now. We ripped the pods out as soon as we could. But they knew that there was going to be changes. And the first sessions that we ran in here, when you look back at the pictures and we've all got face masks on, and I've still kept one over there, you know, it was, and everybody was really anxious. And we were bringing in guest cooks as well, local chefs were coming in to do the opening week. So it was a little bit like, oh, we're all testing beforehand and things like that. It was strange times, but the young people knew already that what they were buying into, what they were saying yes to, because they'd seen the plans, they knew the costings, they knew exactly how much everything was going to cost as well. And they started to get to know me.
Now, Scran and the kitchen was set up with a specific set of needs that you addressed.
Yeah.
And that was because of lockdown. Have the needs changed since lockdown?
No, I don't think they have. We have to be... No, they haven't. The needs haven't changed. The needs are always the same, really. They needed to learn how to cook. They still need to learn how to cook as young people change and come through the doors. Still the same things, getting over the anxiety. Lockdown just meant they were forced into their homes, really, to do the sort of stuff that we do in our own. But we do budget a little bit tighter because of the cost of everything. We also look at better ways of cooking things so that gas isn't on all the time and electricity isn't on all the time. For bentos pies, right? We got sent loads of them during lockdown. They take 30 minutes to cook in the oven, and that is an absolute ton of power. So we need to be really savvy about the way that we cook. We brought the energy doctor in a few weeks ago, who came in and did a presentation and gave us all this quiz to do, which was really enlightening. So we look at the full picture of cooking and using and reusing ingredients as well, and keeping your store cupboard with a good level of stuff so that you can create good things. So we take everything into consideration. We wouldn't necessarily do jack potatoes, for instance, because they take so long to cook. A Frey bentos pie, even though you get it in your food parcel, still takes a lot of power to cook for something that really doesn't have a great deal of nutrition in it. So we take all that kind of stuff into account as well when we're meal planning and working out what we're going to cook with the young people.
So, are we saying that the funding's running out, but the needs aren't diminishing?
The needs are definitely not. And I had a debate, shall we say, with my boss last week. And I said it was just embarrassing. The need is here. Everyone else, a lot of other youth providers have got on the back of what we're doing. Vulcan are doing stuff, St Mike's are doing stuff, and they're cooking, teaching the kids to cook on camping stores. We have got this amazing facility.
So, are there any other potential funding sources?
We're looking around for stuff, but actually, from what our bottom line this year is quite high. So we lose out on a lot of access to funding. But it's quite high because we've got a full digital programme going on in there. We've got an NHS contract that we've just won that actually doesn't come into account until next year, but the finances have already come through. That tips us over the edge a little bit with funders. So.
Right.
I don't know. Not my pay grade, unfortunately. My job, but not my pay grade. Which is just rubbish, really.
Yeah, in that case, we shall see.
We'll see.
He would be confident.